Yeah. So yesterday we have seen two things: the config and the application implicit objects, right? So we'll just see the next one, which is session now. The session is something which is direct implicit object of your HTTP session as such, right? So HTTP session, again, if you normally what we used to do in servlets is if you want to create any session, right? So we used to go to the request and used to say like get session, right? If you remember this, you have something called request dot, right? You have something called get session, right? So in JSPs, so this object would have already been created, and if you want to create again, you can create it again. So both will work as the same session attributes, right? But we don't have to create a new session for this. You can directly use as a implicit object called session, because it's a whenever the underscore JSP service is triggered, right? Even your as you have your request and response, you also have your session implicit object ready for you. Right? So we can use this session object as such. So let's check out the session object. Let me just create other pages now. Let me create a new JSP page. Okay, so let us say we have a page 3 and let us use this index.jsp for page 3 now. So we have an username, we have a password field, and we have a group. Now in my page 3, let us handle the query string first. You have to take union, the same key as such, and then string password is equal to request dot different password. Anyway, still this part we've already seen, right? Which is, so now I'll be using expression. I'll just say welcome. So password. So whatever query string we are getting from index to the page, right? We just got the query string. Now let us save the same thing in session. So saving in session is same. You don't have to create a separate object for session. You can directly use an implicit object of HTTP session called session, right? Dot. So now I'm going to set attribute, right? So this set attribute will actually set something which will stay across. So these data of key and value which I'm going to set in this session will stay or will hold good for the complete application. It can be your servers, it can be your JSPs. You can use this key anywhere you want. But the only thing is, you can once you actually build your key, you cannot change this name of the key. Let us say if you are saying it as ename, like username. So that's it. This will be the key across for this value. You can change the value, but you cannot change the key attribute of session. Right? If you're changing it, which means you're actually creating a new session. Right? So we just created a new session attribute and we just say it for user. Because once the user is logged in, so let us say I've just checked whether the username password is correct or not, and then I just did my session, right? And once this session is ready, we'll just create an anchor field. And just say href of okay, so we'll just create one more page here. Let me call it as page 4. Back here and let's say page 4.jsp, right? So once we are done with this login, which means I'm setting my username to the session. So here what I'm going to do here is, so first let me just read the session, which is, I'll just say session dot get attribute, right? Or you have to take the same key, right, which will return me with a username, right? So this is how we, so this is something which will give you object noise. So now okay, first let us just say toString for this. So we have to follow some standard for this, we will just see it later. And once this is done, let us print this. So this is what we're gonna show here. So from first page, we're going to provide username and password. So in my next page, which is page 3, we're retrieving the username and password. So let's think that we are actually validating, and we just said okay, everything is fine. And then we just created a session where we are adding this up, so the current user. And then we gave an option here to go to page 4. Let's say go here. Right. So we'll just create a break, go here. Okay. So when I click on this go, it will go to page 4. So in this page 4, I'm actually retrieving my username and I'm just showing it as a current user. Right. Now let us run this. Let me start this level. Yeah, so let's take some, here is some password, and click on go. Now, what's up here? Resource not available. Is it given? Okay, page 3B is capital. Okay, because we just gave the resource name as small here, that's right. So just restart it. We'll just take some username and single password, click on go. Now keynote something, we got it here, right? And now we got click on this. So when I click on this, now you can see it will go to the next page and it will actually process this, right? Which is my session. Now here, so let's go one more step, like which is let's create one more page and let us see whether that session is being persisted. Page 5 of JSP, and let me just copy the same thing here and just say current user in page 5, right? And we should be able to see the same over here. So let me just break it up and create the anchor field here. Page 5, page 5.jsp. Okay, so let me restart this. can see this. So I can just take some username and password, click on go. Now you can see it's a page 3 image we have, click on go. Now one step which is on page 4 we got the session, and click to P5 we got the session. Right? So in this way the session will be maintained across all the things. Right? Yeah, so yesterday what we were discussing was, so let us say if you have 5 pages, right, and if you're not logged in, then I said you should make it, or route it to the login page, right? Now basically how we can actually do that is, so let's go to the page 5 first. So let us say this page 5 is something which is a profile page, right? Now whenever we're actually coming back here, if I want to directly enter over here, right, what I want to do here is, which means if I restart my server, stop and restart, right, which means the complete session, whoever are logged in or everything, so all user session is being collapsed, right? So if I go back here and if I refresh this, right, this session is already there, right? So if you copy this and run it again, so same URL as such. If I run this, you can see that there is some issue being coming up, right? So it says null pointer exception, right? So we are getting null pointer exception because the session itself is not there and it is null, and we are trying to convert the null to true string, which is not correct, right? If you wanna see, you can actually check that out in your try catch. Let me just let's say out dot print exception. Anyways, we'll be checking out how to handle the exception anyways, right? The best way to handle exception. Now let me just use this in order to show the actual error we're getting. So this is how we're just creating a layer inside, and whatever, if you're getting an exception, we are about to show this. Okay, so let me just restart this server once and restart the page 2. Let me copy this, close it up, rebuild, right? Now you can see when I want to run, and this you can see it's a decent way it shows, okay, it's null, right? So why it is null? Because the complete user session is not there, right? We just refreshed it. So what we want to do here is, whenever anyone tries to directly go to any page, what we want to do, we want to redirect to the login page, right? Either we can directly just show it and just say response dot send redirect to the page which is index.jsp, right, which will actually redirect your page to a login page, right? Basically you can use this, or so when we actually get into the future topics, right? So we have something called JSP action tags. So we also call it as JSP standard actions, right, which are very useful and very important, right, in real time. So in JSP actions itself, you will get Java beans, right? So when we get into that, we'll understand it further. But as of now, let us use something called responsive, and this is something which will be get used, right? So let me restart the server, clean this up. Let me kill this page. So when I go back again, now you can see, right? So I actually, no, I just pasted this here, which is page 5, right? And when I enter, you can see that it directly went to this page, right? Why? Because we are actually handling that part. So this is what actually I should do. But now this is not the right way anyways. You should not handle anything in your exception things, right? What you should actually do is, you should actually handle the object first, or if you don't want to handle object, what you can do directly is, you can just check whether this is null or not. If it is null, right, then you can actually route it to here. Now sometimes what happens, even here it will give the error, because this attribute is also not there, right? Then again it will give some error. So let us first check out this, right? I'm not handling anything in my cache. What I'm doing here is, I'm just trying to get, if there is no attribute of session which is of username, right, then I want to move back to my login page, which is index.jsps here, right? So let me rebuild this and that. So here 30 page 5.jsp, right? You can see that now there is something which is very simple way that we handle here. But this is how you should handle as such, right? Where you're just checking whether logged in or not. If it is not logged in, redirect to this, right? The same code will work if you are actually logged in. Now you can see, if I just go back, and so there's my page 3, click on go. This on page 4, click on this, you can see page 5. Right, in my, because I've handled something in my page 5. If everything is fine, then yes, I'm actually showing that part. So this is how you should actually work on. If this is how actually all the bigger pages work. If session is expiring, right? Right. If you have created some session for your website, then what happens after maybe 20 minutes, if you haven't mentioned any timeout in server as such, right? Then what happens? It will actually cleans all the session, and whenever you go back to a page, and if you want to try some link, it will directly take you to login page again. Right? So those all checks should be there, in each and every startup of any page which needs login. So that is what happens. That's why you have seen in some websites, right, you can actually browse on any page, like page 1, page 2, or any page you have in any site, right? Normally, basically, if you are going through some ad sites, or some social, not social media sites, some sites where you will find like e-commerce sites, right? So what you'll find, so you can see all the items or whatever you have in that store. But if you want to actually shop in that, then it will ask you for login, right? That's where when you click on few buttons, right, then it will check the session. Okay, whether this guy is logged in or not. If not, then do something. Do login. That's why it gives it, okay, it seems you are not logged in, just log into some site. And once you log into that, each and every feature will work. Even that will be there in your requirements, right? Sometimes you have to check your session only when user want to do some important actions where some transaction is going to happen, right? But yes, the checks, everything will be in the same way, right? You will be checking some sessions for the user, or you will be checking if they are actually not handling this part, then what they will be doing is, in the website, what they will be doing is, they will be checking the user logged in status in the database, right? So whenever user logs in, they will actually change the status of user to logged in states or active state or right, so whatever in database. Basically, even the login states will be updated in database because you have to have all the records of your logged in date and time, right? Obviously, even that will be done, right? Or both will be taken care. Whenever you click on this, you'll just check the session 2 and also you'll just update the same thing in your database that okay, this guy is logged in at this time and right. Sometimes it will also save the IP from which you are actually signing in, right? If Gmail, take an example of Gmail itself, right? It will actually save the IP from where you are actually logging in and the date and time, and sometimes the geolocation, right, from where you are actually logged in, right? So these informations will now you can actually develop the concept once you have the thing in your hand, right? So this is what is session, and if you keep this open for some time, right, you can just try this out once. If you actually keep this, just idle for some time, maybe for some 20 minutes or something, right, and try to just click on go again. You can just keep it here, maybe in page 4. So in page 4, we're actually reading the data, right? You can just keep this for maybe some time, maybe half an hour. Just leave this, and just once you are back from your dinner or breakfast, just try to click on this. So as of now, as session is there, it is going over here, right? But basically, what happens after some time, as session is expired, right? So when I click on this, it will directly check this. Whenever it goes here, till that time, everything would have collapsed, right? So that is a time when it will check this. Okay, this is not there, so that's why it will go to the login page directly, right? So that is something which is session time what we are talking about, right? Yeah. Now let me just open one thing here, which is localhost. Okay, so we have started from here, right? So that's why I can't see that. It does not. If you remember, I've just given you some session. Let me open Tomcat from my command prompt. So Tomcat, and I have my 64 bit, right, which is Apache Tomcat Windows 64, 41 maybe, right? Let me just check this out. And directory, okay, and the startup. I'm just starting this so that let us just see what happens when we actually. So this is starting, and this is in 4.9 port, right? Okay, let's go back here. Okay, it will open up this, and when I click on manager app, we have actually now. Here you can see whenever any site, let us say these are site we deployed, right? You have this expire sessions with idle greater than, right? So this is where you can actually set how many minutes you want to save the session of each user in server. You can actually set for different websites different time. Right? If you want to give more time, that okay, I want to save. So it's a normal e-commerce site where you don't need more security and all, right? You can give more time here, right? Which is in minutes. So this is something which is a Tomcat setup, right? The same setup will also be there when you actually move to actual. If you will be having same setup in your WebLogic or JBoss or whatever you're using in your projects, right? But you can actually manage that from even here too, right? Now this will actually give the expiry time for your servlet container from server side. right? It won't give something. If user is giving something else time here, then it will be different, right? From server side, yes, this is what you're gonna do. So let me shut it down so that we can use it from the now. As this is running right now, you can see when I try to start from here, see what happens. If I just start from here, I'm trying to, you can see that, it won't, right? Because as my protocol is already open, right? That's why what happens is it just says page cannot display because it is already running from here, right? The port is locked. That's why if you want to make sure you want to run this again, you have to shut it down, because from one Tomcat instance, not from one Tomcat, in Tomcat instance, in the same machine, you cannot open different Tomcat instances with the same port. At least port should be different, right? Okay, let me shut it down. Okay, so now if I try this, so you can see, right, because we have the port enabled, and normally then it will be free. Now normally what happens is if the same instance of port is already running, that, and if you click on this, it will show sometimes as such, it will show the error message that, okay, you have seen that error message yesterday, that these ports are in use, right? 4 nines and 8009, these ports are already in use, just try to restart or just get back again, right? The same thing happens here, right? That's what it is. Now this is about your session, which is we can use this session in this way, and you can see that this actually you can use this across all the whole application. Right? This is something which is a complete application scope. Right? Now, let's get into the next one, which is page context. This is almost same as something called session, because we'll be using an attribute field, same attribute field as same as session, but this page context is something which is new in our JSPs only. Right? So that is an implicit object of type called page context. Right? Now let us see here how we can actually do that part. Even this is almost same. So let me just take 3 again. So here, let me just save it as a page context. You can see page context is a direct object implements after page context. Now this page context have got some scope, right? The scope is, we have something called 4 different scopes for this page context. So the first scope is page scope, which means you can actually use this context only in a page, right? And you have a request scope, like once you set your attribute using a page context in one page, until you get to the next page, it will stay, that's it, and it will just go again. And then you have a complete session scope, right? So when once you actually, if you don't want to use a session attribute, which is HTTP session, and if you want to go through page context, right, you can also go and you can actually make it as a session. So which means if you are making that context as a session, which means it will expire sometime, or if you want to keep it forever, it is an application scope, right? So this is how we can actually these are the 4 different scopes we have where you can actually save. These scopes you can actually give like this. The page context, you have something called set attribute it is here. So let me give this as page username. So this is a key you are giving. Come on. So you have to give the value, you can see, right? The value is, let me just give user. And the last argument is something where you have to mention. If you don't mention anything, by default it's a page. Yeah. If you don't mention anything, by default it will get page scope. But you always use this page context for session scope name, no problem. Which is that take a page context dot. You can see we have session scope, right? We have application scope, page, request, session. These are the 4 things I was talking about, right? You can actually mention whatever you want. If you just give session scope, it will act same as a session, right? It won't stay for forever, right? So once your site is idle, it will be actually taking it off. They have one feature called page context, because you can actually use this in different ways. That's why if you give application scope now, until unless you restart your machine, right? Restart your server, so this attribute will stay forever. Yeah? So this is what is your page context. And if you go back to your page 4, now how to get that is again string user is equal to, you have to use a page context again, page context dot get attribute, right? You can directly give your key, which is a name, right? You can get it in this way, where so here current user, or again there is something which is object to string, just append this to this. Yeah, so here's a page 4, right? So let me restart this server. Clean it up, keep on go. Okay, so this is my page 3, where my page context would have set. When I click on this, now you can see that we got an exception. An exception occurred in JSP, page line 14. So what is it? Okay, doesn't matter. So I have to give from which session I want to. So let's say page context dot. So I want to access my variable, which is in application scope, right? So let me clean this and turn it again. Right, you can see even when retrieving, you can actually keep your scope, right? I'm actually mentioning the same scope I've just gave here. That's fine. So go back here, take it, so you say click on go, it's a page, click on go, right? It's page 4, right? Because you have to mention, right? Anyways, I'm trying to get that page context, but from where? And so from where part, I just gave it as get attribute, save this. You can use the same thing across your upcoming pages too, because it's something which is a page scope, right? I mean the application scope, which means you can actually use this in any JSP and not servlet, guys, because page context is an implicit of the direct JSP page context, right? So let's use this. So when we move to page 5, you have this user again. You have this, just touch on the user, click on go. You can see it's a page 3, click on go, it's a page 4. So page 4, now you can see the same user got persisted across, right? So that is what is your page context, which you can use across using a session or right? These are page context, but mostly we'll be using session itself. But yes, if you feel that okay, sometimes you have to differentiate this. Don't ever hard code this as application scope or something. You can just give it as a global constant and there assign your page context so that you can actually get it over here, right? Because once you mention all your page context across some, let us say 20 JSPs in first release, right? Release in a sense. So once the first build cut is taken of a project, and next time, obviously, after 20 JSPs, the pages are growing. Then what happens? The maintenance of these page context will become, a problem. That's why I always make it a centric way, as much as you can actually make it as a configuration. Do it that way, okay? Whatever you can configure. You can see here I'm just hard coding few things, right? Obviously, because as it is a training and hard coding. but you'll never see these blue colored things you should never see. Everything should be configuration, right? You should actually declare in some globals or web.xml anywhere, and from there you should get the attribute and do it here. Now here this is a key, right? You should even save this key across like session key variable, globals. It should be a separate class. Okay? So make as generic as possible. Never hardcode anything in any JSP or servlet, or even not even class, right? So that which will actually make your site more clear, right? So this is something which is your page context. Now you have a page object. Anyways, this is something which is replicated because it is used for logging purpose, right? You have a direct page for log, as we have something called page object. Or you can see that you have until if you convert it to object, then you can actually log it up to you can actually do it, because this page completely works on the current page anyways, right? But anyways, we will be using, because we will be using session time also not. Right? Now you have the next very important thing, which is exception, right? So this exception implicit objects, right? So instead of actually learning here, we learn this once we are done with directives, right? Anyways, this exception is something which is basically used to handle the exception, or make your page as an exception handling page, right? Where you can actually see that you have a direct object called exception, right? Exception. You have to use directory. Okay, doesn't matter. You have to use one directory called each is error page true, and if it is true, then you will be able to handle something called exception. Right? So this implicit objects, in order to use this implicit object, you need one thing, which is directives. Right? So once we move on to directives, once you make that page as an error page, then you will be able to handle some object called exception implicit object. You can't directly use that, because it all depends on whether you're actually working on your error page or not, right? Because this object will not be exposed to each and every page. That's what is. But yes, that is again will come to your implicit object, and we'll be using that. Right? So this is all about implicit objects which we have across the complete JSP till what, right? And then now we'll just move on to the next topic, which is JSP directives. Right? Again, the part which is very important again, JSP directives. So these JSP directives are some, again these are few entities which qualifies the page to how to translate that JSP into corresponding servlet. Right? So the basic syntax of directives, again you will be using the same angular bracket percentage and close this, but we will be using something called @ right? So whenever we created, right, we have already created few directives. Right? You can see, so this is one page directive. You can see we have directly used a page directive, right? And you can see in every page, in JSP page, you will have a directive, right? We'll see what are the different directives we have. So basically on top, we have three directives. One is page directive, the next one is include directive, right? And then we have tag lib directive. So these are the four directives which you have in complete JSP, and I'm talking about the latest JSP version as such, right? And this tag lib, which is tag library, is something which will be which is used to connect different libraries. So this is something which is mainly used in basically. struts. So we'll be looking into this again in struts, because we'll be actually attaching the strut XMLs or tags, right, using this tag lists, right? And page directory is something which is used to actually qualify your page, the current page, right? If you want to do some things like importing something, or if you want to actually look into sessions, if you want to make the error pages, right, thread saves, all these things will be done in this page, right? And this includes something if you want to club two different JSPs, or right, you have seen in some sites, right, where you have your header, the menu bar and the name, logo and everything in a page, right? The header part will be constant across all the pages. Now how they are doing that? So everyone don't actually create header in each and every page. No, they will create one page. They'll keep that as a header. We'll develop one. I'll just give you a sample header where you can actually use that across all the JSPs, and you can actually work on your one content space, right? But basically, if you are the same model in .NET is called as master page and child pages, you can actually create one site master where you have your menus and site tree view and all, and the footer, right? Even if you would have seen for each and every page, there will be something called footers and everything, right? So those are header part, and in each and every page only content will be changing, right? So we can actually develop those type of things in by include. This is something which is a very important directive which we'll be using to include different JSPs or HTMLs, any resource files. It is not only JSPs, any resource files at a place inside a JSP, right? So that is your include directive. We'll be checking out these things. So the first, let us take up the page directive. So in this page directive, so whenever I say page directive, which means it starts from this and ends it, right? So what we are going to see, most of the things are attributes of that page. So these are the maximum possible attributes we have. So we have import attribute, right? So this import is something which is used to import some classes or some APIs of Java, right? Whatever we used to do in classes, right? If you have a date time, let us say, right? If you are using date time, which means you have to import the date time list. If you are using collections, array list, you have to import your java.util, right? In the same, if you are using math, then you have to import your math. The same thing, if you be using your import. And then you have your content type. I hope you remember this content type. We always used to use content type in our servlets, right? We used to set content type to text/HTML, right? Why? Because by default it's a plain text. It will just show the complete code on the response. That is what normally servlet do. Until unless you set the content type that okay, this page is going to be HTML, then right? Until you do that, right, you will not be able to actually make it as a HTML page, right? So that is something which is a content type. So we can also set the content types in this. So there are many content types like as I have explained, which is your text or HTML or text or PDF, application or XLS, right? Those things. So we can use that using a content. You have this content type only as an attribute in page, right? So yeah, you can just keep this in mind in this way. When we say directives, right, it is an entity which directs your JSP, right, to translate it into servlet. It actually qualifies it, right? What is qualifying is mainly your attributes, right? Those attributes are these. Now you have one more thing called extends. Now this extends is something which if you want to use any other class, things here, that will be using this, so that internal to the JSP it will actually extend those APIs. But normally we don't we'll be using this directly in our servlet. If you want to validate something, just extend those APIs in your servlets directly, and you can use them, right? And you have an info attribute. So this info is something to give information that okay, this page is going to do this. That's it, right? So now, whenever you actually move from this JSP to some other JSP, and when you say get info or servlet info, you will be getting this page info to the next resource. That is your info. And buffer. So each and every page, right, will have its own size, right, which is a buffer size. Now, sometimes if your page is dynamic, that in order to load that page, it is taking so much of buffer time, right? Basically, what happens here, you can actually mention what is the maximum buffer you want to set for this page. If you just say 64 KB, right, or something 70 KB, which means if it is going beyond that, right, what happens is it will actually stop rendering those components. It happens. Let us say in your page you have unnecessary ads, right? Your page is taking so long time for loading those ads, because you will be loading ads using some JS links, right? Which means JS links will connect to over the network, right? Internet, and they have to download the complete, maybe it may be flash component, flash element, sorry, or a direct, a 3D element which you have to download and show it in your page, right? So at that moment, obviously, it is going to take some buffer time, right? Which is you have to download that. So yep, because if your page contains more and more flash element ads, which means it is going to take more download space, right? Obviously, which means the user may have to put on more and more download speed and all. Which means if you want to set it for a limit, you can just set it as a buffer limit actually. Okay, this page cannot go more than 100 KB, or it will be 100 KB, obviously not, right? If it is a so heavy page, then obviously you can keep that. If a page is already let us say 50 KB heavy, this heaviness will be, the buffer. Once you are actually converting from servlet to buffer, if you remember the JSP life cycle, right? So whenever your JSP converts to servlet and compile it, and .class file is executed, and then it is converted from servlet container to buffer. So that buffer will have some size, right? So that size we can actually confine that size using your buffer attribute of a JSP, right? And then you have a language attribute. This language attribute is used to define. So basically, we always used to, but we didn't notice that. So if you mention language as Java, right, then this page will become a JSP. So that is your language, right? And you also have content here. So by default, when you create a JSP, the default content will be text.html, and you also have something called CAT set, which is certified character set to message, right? So that is your language. And then even the page encoding, right? We just have seen this page encoding. Page encoding is same. You can actually take up the same character set, right, for page encoding, right? Or you can also keep page encoding as UTF-8, UTF-16, right? So when it is being processed, right? So whether it can process 16 bits at a time or not, right? If you are giving standard, then it will take a JVM standard of your machine, right? That is a page encoding. And you have is EL ignored. So this EL is nothing but expression language. So we'll come to this expression language, EL ignored, or expression language as a separate topic. We have it as a separate topic, right? And you have is thread safe, right? So this is one of attribute of page you have. Now I'm talking about complete page that you guys here. I'm not even touching anything. Include and tag link, we'll see it later, right? So first we're actually learning a page. So all these attributes are possible only in a page directory, right? Which is thread safe. And then you have something called auto flush, okay, which will actually clear the memory of a page. and then you have a direct session, which is session attribute over here, right? And then you have error page. The very important thing we'll be checking out is error page, and you have is error page, right? So these two attributes completely is your exception handling, which will come in the exception handling of your JSPs, let us say, right? And you have, so in the same corner we'll also see configured, which is configured exception handling using a web.xml. We'll see how you can actually handle exception. You can actually configure your exception handling. We'll see how. Right? It will be very interesting, and it will be something which you would love to use. Right? Yeah. So these are the maximum possible things we have in page directives. Right? So we'll see these things in upcoming classes, but these things are something which are straightforward. Maybe I can just explain you this in a quick way. So import is something which will import your classes. So when you create a class, let us say I'm just creating a class here, which is, let us say I'm creating a class, let me call it as globals class, right, inside some package which is com dot something sr dot some common. So here I have a simple method called public maybe return, sorry, string, you can just say get data, and you just return something called hello, some data. Okay, so now this globals is under some package, right? So when you go back to any page here, right, so if you want to access that globals, this is CLS globals, right, you can see it will automatically import the complete name of this, and if it doesn't do that, you have to do that. So until unless you do this part, right, obviously it won't be able to use this. During design time, maybe it will allow you to use that class, but when you actually run it up, right, and if you are not importing the library, sorry, the namespace and the class attached to that namespace, then it will just give a null point exception, right? So that is how you can actually see here. Okay, the main directive is this way, percentile, let's say @ and if you do this, you can see there are three different things: page, include, and tag. Right? So that is what you start with, and you can just say import, and you have to write the code here, which is sr.com.cls globals, whatever you have, right? So it will help you out. So these are you can actually mention your import. Okay. Not only for this, you can, if you are using some array list, let us say, right? If I just say array list, right, you can see it will actually import that. So this is same as import which we have in our classes and all, right? So everything is works in this. So but this wouldn't give something like, if you know a class, let us say you have an import which is your Java maybe dot little, right? And if you're not using this, you can see it will give you a warning, right? It says that it's an import never used, right? Now this is something which is a very good feature of Eclipse. You don't, because you can import any number of libraries, guys, but if you're not using those things, right, obviously it is going to be an overhead to your program. Never do that. Always try to keep your class, this symbol, this exclamatory symbol, keep it in mind that if this is being created because of your import, just try to remove that. And if you feel that in future that import will be used, you can actually import at that time. Don't do that. Now you can see if I save it now, then you can see it clears up. Always try to keep this. Now you can see in my page there is an warning things, but you cannot handle all the warnings in here, basically normal, right? But yes, whatever you can handle, try to get rid of those things, because it says elimination here, right? So we have got this warning. It says that you have to handle some type, right? You can just say yes, I can handle a string type. wherever you feel that you can actually get rid of warnings, try to get rid. And if you save this, now you can see your page will become a clean page. Always. Sometimes, if you are typecasting something, or some things will be there in JSP, because JSP is something you are now not writing any method, right? Or you are not directly doing something as same as class, right? So basically you can't get rid of those things. But doesn't matter. Always try to get rid of these things, right? So that is your input, where you can actually input all the APIs on all the package classes here, right? And your content type, you have seen this content type. So the content type will be of what type you are JSPs, which is the page directory, right? And then you have extends. Extends will be used when you actually want to extend some class as such, right? And anyways, you can write any number of page directory, guys. It is not limited, right? I can write my own page directory over here. I can do that. I can just say extends. And extends, I can give some class. If I have a class, I can give, or if I have something called CLS some class, right? I can extend here, which means I'm actually inheriting my some class here, and I can use all the class components like methods and everything over here, right? So that is how you can actually do, use your extends. And info is something where you can give an info tag. I can just say that this is a maybe login page, right? So this page, whenever we actually move to next page, right? So if the next resource want to get info, okay, what is this page all about? Then this is where you have to mention in info, right? So that is our info tag. And buffer, as I said, buffer is something which you can actually give minimum. So by default it's an 8 KB. Even if you give any size or not, it will be 8 KB, but you can actually change it to right? But make sure you're actually changing, because this may hit your performance of your page, right? Just keep it default. Yeah? And then you have language. You have seen this language attribute of that, and you have page encoding of C, and then you have ease ignore. So these things will come as a direct attribute again, which is other page. You can see when I click on, there are three things: use thread safe, use error page, ECL. So easy and ignore is something, okay, if you don't want to use your expression language, what is expression language, how you can use them, you learn this part when you actually move on to the EL part, which is expression language of JSP's part, right? Even that will be very interesting, right? And ease error page, yes, we learn when we actually go to exception handling, the last topic. And then we have the use thread safe. The use thread safe is something, so if you make it true, right, which means this page will actually create multiple threads. But if you make it fast, right, which means only one person can access this page at once. That's it. That is what is a thread safe here, the meaning. If you're making it fast, which means you're actually taking a very big decision of making this thread safe fast. Right? So that is your thread safe. And then you have auto flush. Yes, you can actually make use of that, which is your auto flush. Always make it, by default it is true, basically. Right? If you want to actually make it fast, maybe. But don't worry, because JVM will take care of this thing as such, right? And you have something called session, right? If you want to disable the session in this, right, you can actually do that. So that is your session tag. Session true, which means yes, you are actually allowing that part. If you make it true, which means you don't want to, entertain any sessions in this. So you can do that. Make it fast, right? So that is your session, right? So these are a few things which are, you have the directives, and we'll see the important part, which is error page and ease error page, which are page directives, including your implicit object called exception. Right? So we'll see this part in next class, okay? When we meet, and then we'll move ahead with the next topic after once we are done with this. Okay? So that is all about today, guys. So you guys have any questions?